Hi, today I'm talking about planting your garden from seed, or why I plant my garden from seed. Every year I plant the majority of my garden from seeds, like seed packs, instead of going to buy the little starter plants, mostly because my garden has gotten large and it would cost a lot to plant the amount of plants that I want to have every year if I bought seed, like the little small plants from the garden center. I do occasionally buy some of those, but mostly every year I start my garden from seed. So I realize not everyone is able to start their garden from seed if you have a short growing season, but I happen to have a long growing season. I know a lot of people start their seeds indoors. I don't do that, mostly because we have a long growing season. I live in zone 8B. Another thing I wanted to share is that this year I'm going to plant annuals again, with like zinnias, cosmos, sunflowers, and a few other, I don't know, I'm going to try some other things out. I think gumprina is one that I want to try this year, but I'm also going to plant more perennials like daisies or black-eyed Susans or echinacea. I planted some echinacea 2 weeks ago. So I put those in little little containers right here. I'm trying to let those get an early start and get roots established, and then I'm going to plant those out in the garden. But typically I just direct sow everything in the beds when we reached our last frost, which for us it will be probably around this week. I'm still going to wait until probably middle of April, just so it's a little bit warmer for the zinnias and the cosmos and the sunflowers. I would say each year that I plant zinnias and cosmos and sunflowers, especially the zinnias and cosmos, they come back, or they just keep blooming and blooming and blooming. I even planted cosmos last year in the middle of the summer, and they bloomed all the way through November. One other thing I want to add, if you don't have a garden space, if you don't have a big garden space, you do not have to plant your seeds in the ground. That's just what I do, because when I started my garden, when I started this garden in 2020, I was home, and it was just, I had been planting flowers for years in pots, and I wanted to just expand that space. And so if you don't have the space to plant like here, or if you don't have raised beds, you can always just get containers and plant them in containers, and they do quite well. Like, I have friends who just plant in containers only, because not everyone is able to get down and plant, get on the ground and plant seeds, and I understand that. So it's just what works for me right now, but you can always plant your seeds in pots as well. So last year, or the fall before that, I planted a lot of black-eyed Susans, and Rebecca is what they're called, and I planted some echinacea. I planted them in the fall, nothing really happened, and then they had these tiny little sets of leaves through the winter, and then when it started to warm up in the spring, they started to grow and grow and grow. So that is one of my favorite perennials that I plant. I don't know how many of those I'll plant. I have a few that are coming back this year in different areas in my yard. I even planted some of those in the summer, and they grew from just tiny little plants, up to bigger plants, and they lasted in my zone all the way until almost January, which surprised me, until we had a couple of really cold freezes. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, I would highly recommend starting a few flowers from seed this year, or annuals or perennials, or even vegetables, just to see how it goes, because they're not very expensive. You can buy some seeds for like $1.99 a pack, maybe even less than that. Most of mine that I buy are like $1.99 or maybe $2.50 from Home Depot, Lowe's, or I do order from a couple of different websites. So the last thing I want to do is I'm just going to walk around the garden and show a couple of those Rebecca or Black-eyed Susans, the Echinacea, and show the ones that I've planted in these little containers here, and just give like a quick little walkthrough of what I have right now. This is the left side of my garden. Last year I had a lot of sunflowers in the back and a lot of zinnias in the front. Sunflowers, and I had cosmos and mostly zinnias. Right now there's a couple Black-eyed Susans or Rebecca that I transplanted, and I may leave those or I may move those somewhere else. In that container over there I had Black-eyed Susan vine. Yesterday I planted 2 elephant ears over here. I'm about to put a border around those with the little pavers, and I'm hoping that those are going to be in a good sunny and shady location for those elephant ears to grow this year. And then over this side is where this is my original side of my garden, where it started over here. It was just very, very small, like maybe 2 feet wide by 2 feet, and then I just kept digging and digging, and now I've just expanded it to make it's about 4 feet by 16. So anyway, right here are these are Shasta daisies. They have not bloomed yet. They have been growing here since maybe a year ago, and they survived the winter, but still no blooms. Hoping to get some this year. I discovered these yesterday, where these are Echinacea. These are perennials, and these will come back every year, but I didn't know until yesterday that they had survived the winter. Here's a few right here and here, and there's even some over here, and I think right there, or that might be something else. Okay, so all of these are the Rebecca or Black-eyed Susans. They have like a little fuzzy leaf. They look very small right now, but amazingly they will get about 3 to 4 feet tall, and they bloom all summer long. Right here is where I planted the Echinacea 2 weeks ago. They take a couple of weeks to germinate, and then I planted 2 seeds each of some floret dahlias from seed, and these have germinated. So I'm happy to see that those have made it, and I expect to see these pretty soon, and if not, I will probably just try to plant those again. So thanks for watching. I hope you decide to maybe plant some seeds from seed packs this year, or sorry, plant some flowers from seed packs this year, and consider trying annuals and perennials for this year, whether you do it in pots or the ground. I just think it's a good way to go. You save money, and if you don't have good success with them, you didn't lose a lot of money in the process. So thank you for watching.